ओम परतत्वे सदा लीनो रामकृष्णसमाज्ञया यो धर्मस्थापनरतो वीरेशं तं नमाम्यहम्. We are studying Swamiji's Raja Yoga, and the chapter is the psychic prana. Fourth chapter, the psychic prana. And Swamiji has explained the Kundalini up till now. And he has explained Mahakasha, Chittakasha and Chidakasha. And that, taking the analogy of electricity, we find that man can send a current only along a wire. But nature requires no wires to send her tremendous currents. This proves that the wire is not really necessary, but that only our inability to dispense with it compels us to use it. And this is the precursor to the discovery of radio. Now Swamiji turns it to this psychic prana. Similarly, all the sensations and motions of the body are being sent into the brain and sent out of it through these wires of nerve fibers. The columns of sensory and motor fibers in the spinal cord are the Ida and Pingala of the yogis. They are the main channels through which the apparent and efferent currents travel. Apparent means going in and going out. But why should not the mind send news without any wire or react without any wire? We see this is done in nature. The yogi says, if you can do that, you have got rid of the bondage of matter. How to do it? If you can make the current pass through the Sushumna, the canal in the middle of the spinal column, you have solved the problem. In Ida and Pingala, there are nerve fibers. So the sensory nerve fiber carries the information to the brain, and the motor nerve fibers carry command from the brain. Now this is to the fibers. Sushumna is a blank, only vacuous tube. So if you can pass through that, no wire is necessary. The Sushumna is in ordinary persons closed up at the lower extremity. No action comes through it. Sushumna is closed. The yogi proposes a practice by which it can be opened and the nerve currents made to travel through. When a sensation is carried to a center, the center reacts. This reaction, in the case of automatic centers, is followed by motion. In the case of conscious centers, it is followed first by perception and secondly by motion. That in the Ida and Pingala, sensory and motor are separate. But in the Sushumna, in the lower centers, automatic action takes place. But when it comes up, then perception and then action. All perception is the reaction to action from outside. This you have to understand. Something strikes our retina, and then that through the sensory motion it goes. It reaches the brain, buddhi, and the consciousness behind reacts. So that reaction is perception. We perceive a thing only when our mind reacts to it. So all perception is reaction. How then do perceptions in dreams arise? There no motion is coming from outside. There is then no action from outside. The sensory motions, therefore, are coiled up somewhere Since what has come from outside, that is stored somewhere. And so when that uh, store becomes dynamic, then the reaction comes. You understand? In waking state, something comes and we react. Now that something which has come does not exhaust itself. It is there somewhere. So in the dream, in our sleeping state, it again opens. So impressions of Jagruti, that is what is dream. Mind's reaction to the impressions of Jagruti, that is dream. For instance, I see a city. The perception of that city is from the reaction to the sensation brought from outside objects comprising that city. That is to say, a certain motion in the brain molecules has been set up by the motion in the in-carrying nerve, which again are set in motion by external objects in the city. That is the normal process. Now, even after a long time, I can remember the city. This memory is exactly the same phenomenon, only it is in a milder form. So that is stored somewhere. It comes up again in a milder form. But whence is the action that sets up even the milder form of similar vibrations in the brain? Not certainly from the primary sensation. Therefore, it must be that the sensations are coiled up somewhere and they by their acting bring out the mild reaction which we call dream perception. From memory as explained dream. Memory is the coming up of the old sanskara. Now when it happens in sleep, it is called dream. Now the center where all these residual sensations are, as it were, stored up is called the Mooladhara. The root receptacle, Moola Adhar. And the coiled up energy of action is Kundalini, the coiled up. Because, take the example of a snake. Snake when it sits or is stable, then it is coiled up. When it moves, then it straight away goes straight, uncoiled. So that is what is happening, so it is the coiled up. It is very probable that the residual motor energy is also stored up in the same center. That means previous reactions, motor energy, that is also there.
स्वप्नावस्था में जो जागृत अवस्था में हम जो कुछ भी देखते हैं उसके जो संस्कार हमारे अवचेतन मन में बैठ जाते हैं तो उसी को हम स्वप्न में देखते हैं। लेकिन कभी कभी ऐसा स्वप्न आता है कि जिसे हमने जागृत अवस्था में देखा ही नहीं।
ठीक है। यही फर्क है, मेमोरी और स्वप्न में यही फर्क है कि कई संस्कार पास्ट लाइफ्स के हमारे वो मिक्सअप होकर के सामने आते, ठीक है ना। इसका जवाब गौड़पाद जी ने मांडुक्य कार्यक्रम में दिया है। अपूर्वम स्थानीय धर्मों ये में कोई राक्षस देखते हैं, कोई हाथी देखते हैं, कुछ अजब सा देखते हैं, तो बोलते हैं कि ये अगर माने इन आवर वेकिंग स्टेट, साउथ अफ्रीका में ऐसे पेड़ है जो आदमी को खा जाते हैं, अगर किसी को मालूम है वहाँ जाके देख सकता है वो। इस तरह से ये पुराने सारे संस्कार मिक्सअप होकर के आ रहे हैं, ये फर्क है। वेकिंग में मेमोरी एक एक आती है, मिक्सअप नहीं होती, पर स्लीप में वो सब मिक्सअप है, क्योंकि पुराने बहुत पिछले जन्म के आते हैं। अब इसके तो हिंदी बोलने लगे। तुमने हिंदी में पूछा इसलिए. So the question was that how we see strange dreams which we do not see in the waking state. We have not seen those things in the waking state. The answer is that in our past life we have seen several things, and all these impressions get mixed up, and that comes in the dream. Okay. Now Swamiji is telling that previous reactions, they also are stored up. So like the sensory emotions, the motor emotions also are stored up. It is very probable that the residual motor energy is also stored up in the same center, as after deep study or meditation on external objects, the part of the body where the Muladhara center is situated, probably the sacral plexus, gets heated. In meditation Swamiji mentioned किया ना, deep study or meditation, तो वो हीट अप हो जाता है. इसलिए that motor sensations also are stored up, they get released. Now if this coiled up energy be roused and made active, and then consciously made to travel up the Sushumna canal, as it acts upon center after center, a tremendous reaction will set in. This sensory and motor stored up energy, if it goes through the Sushumna without wires and it crosses the centers, then the reaction comes. When a minute portion of energy travels along a nerve fiber and causes reaction from centers, the perception is either dream or imagination. Imagination is another type of mental function. We have not seen, but we can conjure them. But when by the power of long internal meditation, the vast mass of energy stored up travels along the Sushumna and strikes the center, the reaction is tremendous, immensely superior to the reaction of dream or imagination, immensely more intense than the reaction of sense perception. Sense perception reaction, dream or imagination reaction, but through Sushumna when it goes, it is tremendous. It is supersensuous perception. That means you do not see through the Indriyas, those things we start seeing. And when it reaches the metropolis of all sensation, the brain, the whole brain as it were reacts, and the result is the full blaze of illumination, the perception of this self. Understand? So, senses perception, but when it goes through the Sushumna, there is supersensuous perception. And when it reaches Sahasrara, then aparoksha anubhava. We see the reality itself. Sense perception, supersensuous perception, and in Sanskrit it is called aparoksha anubhava, non-indirect perception. You understand this point? That outside objects, sensory perception. What is in the mind, if I say, Indriyas will not reach there, but in my mind. But Indriyas are not necessary, I see them directly. Now what is my real nature? There my mind also cannot reach. But I can see that without the medium of Indriyas and mind. So that is called the that is seeing the reality itself. As this Kundalini force travels from center to center, layer after layer of the mind as it were opens up. That means this supersensuous has several layers. this ordinary, and this what is called Doordarshan. Doordarshan means not this Doordarshan, seeing something gross but subtler power. But Bhava and Bhava Samadhi, there are layers after layers of this supersensuous perception. And the final is superessential. Layer after layer of the mind as it were opens up, and this universe is perceived by the yogi in its fine or causal form. The tanmatras are perceived. Beyond that, the mind, ahankar, they are also perceived. And ultimately, self is perceived. Then alone the causes of this universe, both as sensation and reaction, are known as they are. And hence comes all knowledge. Causes means subtler things, they are also perceived. The causes being known, the knowledge of the effect is sure to follow. If we perceive the subtle, cross is already known to us. Thus, the rousing of the Kundalini is the one and only way to attaining divine wisdom, superconscious perception. No, this is nowhere in Patanjali. Absolutely, Kundalini reference itself is not there. So, Swamiji's Rajoga goes much beyond Patanjali. And there are books, other books than Patanjali. Swamiji is talking from his direct experience, but he is referring to books also. So, Kundalini Yoga, in Tantra this is described more. Thus, the rousing of the Kundalini is the one and only way to attaining divine wisdom, superconscious perception, realization of the spirit, that which is not matter, not subtle matter also, consciousness, that is called spirit. The rousing may come in various ways. Now, this Kundalini Jagran can come in many ways, not necessarily this yogic process. Through love of God, Bhakti makes this Kundalini awake. Through the mercy of perfected sages, now this has created a havoc. Perfected sages, if their mercy is there, the rousing will be proper. But you might have heard the word Shaktipat, have you heard of that? So some hypocrites will come, or somebody having some power, and they will say, I will give you Shaktipat. Then we become slave of that person. And it is not a systematic way. So horrible confusions come. When I was in Rishikesh, I was standing near the Ganges. Two young men were going, and they asked me, have you got the Guru? I said, yes. Then have you realized God? I said, no. Then you don't have got the Guru. If you get the Guru, immediately you should realize God. So this, from this mercy of the sages, which is something real, this type of imitative things have come. Or through the power of the analytic will of the philosopher. This is Jnana Yoga. Analytical will of the philosopher. That means through analysis we find out what is subtle. And when we find it out, then will also becomes powerful. And through analytical will, we get the perception. Wherever there was any manifestation of what is ordinarily called supernatural power or wisdom, there a little current of Kundalini must have found its way into this Sushumna. Only in the vast majority of such cases, people had ignorantly stumbled upon some practice which set free a minute portion of the coiled up Kundalini. You understand? Unless systematically practiced, something happens. All worship, consciously or unconsciously, leads to this end. Bhakti, upasana, consciously or unconsciously, that means you do not know the connection. We are doing upasana, Kundalini rises. The man who thinks that he is receiving response to his prayers does not know that the fulfillment comes from his own nature. Somebody from outside does not send us. Inside us, Brahman is there. So prayer means our powers become concentrated. Just like will and prayer, if it is sincere. What is the difference between will and prayer? Tell me now. Understand, Abhijit? Important point. Nishchay and prarthana.
Will, in the case of will, you are depending on your lower self, I would say.
You are depending from your ego. And in prayer, that focusing power is there. But you are subjugating your ego to God, to your own reality. So that is more powerful. In Mahapurush Maharaj's conversation, this topic comes quite often. Some Mahanta is complaining about a brahmachari and is asking Mahapuruji to scold him. Mahapuruji, by scolding, nothing happens. If you pray, his mind may change. Prayer has infinite power. So it's a great lesson for us. If we feel one of our friends is not behaving properly, we just pray. Now prayer will give two results. It will make your mind calm and also will have effect on that person. Otherwise what happens, we simply react. Understood? That he has succeeded by the mental attitude of prayer in waking up a bit of this infinite power which is coiled up within himself. What thus men ignorantly worship under various names through fear and tribulation. You understand? Ghost, Chandi, Bhairav, Shitala Mata. But all the energy is coming from within. Under various names through fear and tribulation, the yogi declares to the world to be the real power coiled up in every being, the mother of eternal happiness, if we but know how to approach her. This Kundalini is also conceived as mother. Source of all power is called mother. And Rajoga is the science of religion, the rationale of all worship. Rationale means logical reason behind worship. All prayers, forms, ceremonies and miracles. Behind miracles also superstitious powers is there. So this is the description of the psychic prana, Kundalini. Now, Swami has only hinted here that we have to apply intellectual will, knowledge will. That he describes in the next chapter. Chapter 5, the control of the psychic prana. We have now to deal with the exercise in pranayama. Swamiji's pranayama topic is continuing. Prana, psychic prana, now pranayama. We have seen that the first step according to the yogis is to control the motion of the lungs. That is the nearest available to us. So from there we start. What we want to do is to feel the finer motions that are going on in the body. Now I am stopping because you have heard this Vipassana. You know anything about Vipassana? What is that? We concentrate on the tip of the nose. We are not concentrating on nose, the breathing which is going on. And we shall slowly find all the changes in the body which is going on. Changes in the mind which are going on. Changes in the external world which are going on. And then we attain stoicism. Stoicism, you know, not reacting to anything outside. But this is not full wisdom, this is half also. We become aware that the whole world is changing. My body is changing every moment. My mind is changing every moment. The whole universe is changing every moment. So, I am not affected by the changes. That cannot be the final goal of life. It is not giving illumination. Understand this point? Now, let me tell a little more about it. Buddhism is mainly meditation. And it became divided into two schools. The northern school and the southern school. Mahayana and the Hinayana. The northern school, China, Japan, Korea. And southern school, Burma, Silo. Okay. That is called Mahayana and this is called Hinayana. This Vipassana, one Mr. Goenka, Indian, but under British serving in Rangoon. He studied Vipassana there. And he brought it to India. He opened the Vipassana center in Igatpuri. And throughout India, there are hundreds of centers now, hundreds of camps. Now, I am telling a funny story. The president of the managing committee of Chandigarh Ashram was Mr. Jitendra Veer Gupta, Chief Justice of Punjab Haryana High Court. And his brother, Ravi Ravindra, was serving in Canada. What job? Funny job, huh? Professor of comparative religions and professor of physics. And Justice Gupta went to attend a Vipassana camp. At the same time, Ravi Ravindra every year used to go to Korea to attend. You know their meditation? You have heard the word Zen Buddhism? What is Zen? Dhyana. Dhyana became Apabhramshita in their language, became Zen. So, that is the positive part. Zen Buddhism proposes certain riddles. That means they are not soluble, irrational. But thinking of them, your mind goes higher. One example I will tell you. Show me your face before you were born. This is one of the Zen Buddhistic riddles. Now, the teacher is sitting. In Zen Buddhism, presence of teacher is absolutely necessary. And students are said. He will say, concentrate your mind and whatever is in your right, throw away, right hand. There is nothing, but will make a motion of throwing away. Whatever is in your left hand, throw away, another motion. Whatever is in both of your hands, you throw away. If you can follow this concentration, you will attain samadhi. This is another method of Zen Buddhism. Anyway, so these two are counterparts of each other. Vipassana is not complete in itself. At the most, it will give you stoicism. That means remain unaffected by the outside changes. But that is not the goal of life. You will not know your own real nature. Our goal is to know our real nature and real nature of the whole world. That is not being attained. There are people who, without this also, who are stoic. Stoic means they are not affected by what is happening. But that is not the goal of life. Anyway, so because people may become tempted towards Vipassana, so I told you my knowledge about Vipassana. I have studied their books, I have seen their practices. But I wanted to attend a camp of Vipassana as observer, that they did not allow. No, they will say, stop your Ishta mantra japa, or everything else you will stop. No talking to each other. A particular 1 hour, 2 hours is given when you can talk to your superior teachers. Like that. Anyway. So, this pranayama Swamiji is telling, this we can come to what we want to do is to feel the finer motion that are going on in the body. Our minds have become externalized and have lost sight of the finer motions inside. Actually, we should know what is happening in the mind, but we have become externalized, so we do not know what is happening. If we can begin to feel them, we can begin to control them. These nerve currents go on all over the body, bringing life and vitality to every muscle, but we do not feel them. The yogi says we can learn to do so. How? By taking up and controlling the motion of the lungs. Because that is something which is directly available to us under our will, and we can control it. Through that we are entering the body. When we have done that for a sufficient length of time, we shall be able to control the finer motion. That means sufficient length of time, we shall control the lungs. Then we will enter the finer motion. We now come to the exercises in pranayama. Now practical teaching of pranayama. Swamiji has built up the theory. Psychic pranayama is described. And how through that control we can attain wisdom. Now he tells what are the practices. Sit upright. The body must be kept straight. We have seen that Sushumna is a thin thing. Little bending means it gets closed. The spinal cord although not attached to the vertebral column, is yet inside of it. If you sit crookedly, you disturb the spinal cord, so let it be free. Anytime that you sit crookedly and try to meditate, you do yourself an injury. Understood? At the time of japa or dhyan or study or throughout the day, make the practice of sitting straight. This, what you call that? Crouched portion, like this, that is never healthy. In the previous houses, traditional houses, if anybody seen small boy sitting like that, the elders will give a hit from behind. Sit straight. Such things are traditional. No. We are eating at table. The spinal. So, meditation time, if you are sitting crooked, then the opposition is coming. You are trying to straighten and you are trying to opposite. So, injury comes. The three parts of the body, the chest, the neck and the head, must be always held straight in one line. Chest, neck and head. You will find that by little practice this will come to you as easy as breathing. It's a question of habits and practice only. And that is why always we should do that, not only at the time of dhyana. See, if the habit becomes like that, at the time of meditation also we will sit like that. The second thing is to get control of the nerves. We have said that the nerve center that controls the respiratory organs has a sort of controlling effect on the other nerves, and rhythmical breathing is therefore necessary. That nadi shuddhi, rhythmical breathing. The breathing that we generally use should not be called breathing at all. You understand? We are not willfully breathing. Breathing is happening. So it is irregular. So somehow it cannot be called breathing at all. It is very irregular. Then there are some natural differences of breathing between men and women. That is some natural difference. You see, in Swami Virjanandaji's Paramartha Prasanga, have you read that book? You have read. Toward the Goal Supreme, you read that. In Hindi also is there, Paramartha Prasanga. There, different animals' breathing is given. Do you remember? Elephants' breathing, cows' breathing, men's breathing, sparrows' breathing. So, that decides the longevity also. No, Thakur Swamiji's conversation, you remember in this respect? Thakur told Narendranath that all your lakshanas are fine, but when you, in your sleep, when you exhale, it will be a little quick. And the yogis tell that such men will not live long. So Swamiji left it till tonight. So man and woman also, there are differences. The first lesson is just to breathe in a measured way, in enough. That Nadi Shuddhi again he has brought. That will harmonize the system. You see, the whole system becomes smooth, streamlined as we call it, by practicing Nadi Shuddhi. For singers, voice becomes toned up by Nadi Shuddhi. The breathing, the first lesson is just to breathe in a measured way, in and out. That will harmonize the system. When you have practiced this for some time, you will do well to join it to the repetition of some word as Om or any other sacred word. Sacred word means mantra or name of God, but Om is usually used. We do not say 1, 2, 3, 4. Om, 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 Om. Mentally, breathing in 16 ohms, breathe out like that. In India, we use certain symbolical words instead of counting 1, 2, 3, 4. That is why I advise you to join the mental repetition of the Om or some other sacred word to the pranayama. Let the word flow in and out with the breath, rhythmically, harmoniously, and you will find the whole body is becoming rhythmical. In this also I am telling something. Before this Jain Buddhism, 24th Guru from Buddha, what was his name? Bodhisattva or some name is there. He went to China with the idea of teaching them Dhyan. And he found that their bodies are not at all fit for Dhyan. And they have patience. So he thought, one generation I will tell them systematic breathing. And from there, all this, what we call the karate, kung fu, amuktamuk, so many things, they have come from his teachings. Let the body be rhythmical somehow or other. That is the idea. Then you will learn what rest is. Compared with it, sleep is not rest. When this rest comes, the most tired nerve will be calmed down, and you will find that you have never before really rested. Anytime, both. Suppose you are physically tired or mentally restless, sit quiet and do Nadi Shuddhi. You will find you are coming to rest. And that rest or relaxation will be so strong that better than sleep, Swamiji says. This is what Hatha Yogis should teach practice. The first effect of this practice is perceived in the change of expression of one's face. Harsh lines disappear. With calm thought, calmness comes over the face. Next comes beautiful voice. I never saw a yogi with a croaking voice. These signs come after a few months' practice. After practicing the above mentioned breathing for a few days, you should take up a higher one. Slowly fill the lungs with breath through the ida, the left nostril, and at the same time concentrate the mind on the nerve current. So in pranayama only breathing is not there, the mind should be concentrated on what is going on. Down the spinal column and striking violently on the last plexus, the basic lotus, which is triangular in form. So mentally or by will, you are concentrating and hitting the sacral plexus. The seat of the Kundalini. Then hold the current there for some time. That is Kumbhak. Imagine that you are slowly drawing that nerve current with the breath through the other side, the Pingala. That means not only breathing out, that nerve current you have to concentrate. And the thing you have to bring in that nerve current outside. Pranayama is not only physical. This is Swamiji teaching pranayama. Then slowly throw it out through the right nostril. This you will find a little difficult to practice. How to do it? Physically. That means when you are practice, you do not require like this, fingers. I am taking through left, through right, this willfully usually. But it is difficult because you are not practiced. So start like that. The easiest way is to stop the right nostril with the thumb and then slowly draw in the breath through the left. Then close both nostrils with thumb and forefinger and imagine that you are sending that current down and striking the base of the Sushumna. Then take the thumb off and let the breath out through the right nostril. Next inhale slowly through that nostril, keeping the other closed by the forefinger. Then close both as before. The way the Hindus practice, Hindus used to practice. Hindus practice this would be very difficult for this country because they do it from their childhood and their lungs are prepared for it. Now all this is gone. Here it is well to begin with 4 seconds and slowly increase. 4 seconds inhaling. Draw in 4 seconds, hold in 16 seconds, then throw out in 8 seconds. Because it has gathered, na? So throwing should be take double time. This makes one pranayama. At the same time, think of the basic lotus, triangular in form. Concentrate the mind on that center. The imagination can help you a great deal. That means you are not able to see what image that you are seeing that. The next breathing is slowly drawing the breath in and then immediately throwing it out slowly and then stopping the breath out. That is external pranayama. Inside you do not hold. External kumbha. You are not thrown out, take it. And then drawing. And then stopping the breath out using the same numbers. The only difference is that in the first case the breath was held in and in the second held out. This last is the easier one. External kumbhak is easier. The breathing in which you hold the breath in the lungs must not be practiced too much. Do it only 4 times in the morning and 4 times in the evening. Then you can slowly increase the time and number. You will find that you have the power to do so and that you take pleasure in it. That means when you get it, you will feel happy about it also. So very carefully and cautiously increase as you feel that you have the power to 6 instead of 4. It may injure you if you practice it irregularly. Of the 3 processes for the purification of the nerve described above, the first and the last are neither difficult nor dangerous. Nadi Shuddhi and external kumbha. The more you practice the first one, the calmer you will be. Just think of Om. And you can practice even while you are sitting at your work. You will be all the better for it. Someday if you practice hard, the Kundalini will be aroused. For those who practice once or twice a day, just a little calmness of the body and mind will come. And beautiful voice, only for those who can go on further with it, will Kundalini be aroused. and the whole of nature will begin to change, and the book of knowledge will open. No more will you need to go to books for knowledge. Your own mind will have become your book, containing infinite knowledge. I have already spoken of the Ida and Pingala currents flowing through either side of the spinal column and also the Sushumna, the passage through the center of the spinal cord. These three are present in every animal. Whatever being as a spinal column has these three lines of action. But the yogis claim that in an ordinary man, the Sushumna is closed. Its action is not evident, while that of the other two is carrying power in different parts of the body. The yogi alone has the Sushumna open. When the Sushumna current opens and begins to rise, we get beyond the senses because we don't have to go through the wires. Our minds become super sensuous, super conscious. We get beyond even the intellect. Super sensuous from perception point of view, super conscious from knowledge point of view. We get even beyond even the intellect, where reasoning cannot reach. To open that Sushumna is the prime object of the yogi. According to him, along this Sushumna are arranged these centers, or in more figurative language, these lotuses. They are called chakras or padmas, as they are called. The lowest one is at the lower end of the spinal cord and is called Muladhara. The next higher is called Swadhisthana. The third Manipur, the fourth Anahata in the heart. The fifth Vishuddha in the Kantha. The sixth Agya in the between the brows. And the last, which is in the brain, is the Sahasrara or the 1,000 petals. Of these, we have to take cognition just now of two centers only, the lowest, the Muladhara, and the highest, the Sahasrara. All energy has to be taken up from its seat in the Muladhara and brought to the Sahasrara. The yogis claim that of all the energies that are in the human body, the highest is what they call Ojas. Ojas? You have heard this word otherwise? The energy which is roused by the practice of brahmacharya, that is Ojas. That which does not become externalized, does not go to the body, that is Ojas. Now this Ojas is stored up in the brain, and the more Ojas is in man's head, the more powerful he is, the more intellectual, the more spiritually strong. One man may speak beautiful language and beautiful thought, but they do not impress people. Another man speaks neither beautiful language nor beautiful thought, yet his words charm. Every movement of his is powerful. That is the power of Ojas. Now in every man, there is more or less of this Ojas stored up. All the forces that are working in the body in their highest become Ojas. You must remember that it is only a question of transformation. That means energy is dissipated here and there. When transformed, it becomes Ojas. The same force which is working outside as electricity or magnetism will become changed into inner force. The same force that is working as muscular energy will be changed into Ojas. The yogis say that that part of the human energy which is expressed as sex energy in sexual thought, when checked and controlled, easily becomes changed into Ojas. And as the Muladhara guides these, the yogi pays particular attention to that center. He tries to take up all this sexual energy and convert it into Ojas. It is only the chaste man or woman who can make the Ojas rise and store it in the brain. That is why chastity has always been considered the highest virtue. Means sex is the worst way into spending. A man feels that if he is unchaste, spirituality goes away. He loses mental vigor and moral stamina. Moral stamina means if it is tempted, then he loses. That is called stamina. That is why in all religions, that is why in all the religious orders in the world which have produced spiritual giants, you will always find absolute chastity insisted upon. That is why the monks came into existence, giving up marriage. There must be perfect chastity in thought, word and deed. Without it, the practice of Raj Yoga is dangerous and may lead to insanity. Straight away he has told here. There are grihasthas doing it, but they have to be very much chaste. If people practice Raj Yoga and at the same time lead an impure life, how can they expect to become yogis? So finally in this chapter, he has come to this point. Okay? We'll take up the next, that is very easy readings now. So we'll take up the next chapter next time. Om Paratatve Sada Lino Ramakrishna Samagya Yo Dharma Sthapana Rato Viresham Tam Namamyaham. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.